In this video, I'm going to show you how you can squat without your heels always coming up from the ground. And I'll also show you the most effective corrective exercises to start getting instant results. Hey everyone, it's Mark here from Rehab Ward, where I help recreational CrossFit and functional fitness athletes overcome knee and shoulder injuries. If you're new here, then be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you can receive further videos just like this one. Otherwise, all the links are available in the description below. Squats are a very effective exercise to help build strength in your lower legs. More and more gyms are including squats into their regular programming, and if you are involved in areas such as F45 or CrossFit, then you most likely do a ton of these. However, if you're just starting out with squats, then what you may notice is that as you descend into the squat, that your heels begin to raise off the ground, causing your technique to break down or potentially causing pain in your knees or other areas. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through step by step why your heels may be coming off the ground when you squat, but more importantly, exactly what you need to do to address those issues. And if you stick around towards the end of this video, I'm going to show you the most effective mobility drill that you can do, which will help you keep your heels on the ground as you squat. Firstly, to address this issue, it's important to understand why your heels may be coming off the ground as you squat. Reason number one is a limitation in your ankle dorsiflexion range of motion. Ankle dorsiflexion occurs when your shin moves forward over your toes. The primary action at the ankle joint while squatting is to perform ankle dorsiflexion, and this allows you to get proper depth and execute good technique. A limitation in ankle dorsiflexion would mean that as you descend, your heels would raise up from the ground to compensate. A really quick test to see if this is the case for you is to perform a feet together squat with your shoes off. What you want to do is stand with your feet together and see if you can squat all the way down with your hips below the level of your knees while keeping your feet on the ground. If you are unable to get your hips low enough, or if your heels come up from the ground, or if you fall backwards, then it is most likely that you have a limitation of your ankle dorsiflexion range of motion. Some of the best exercises you can do to improve your ankle dorsiflexion are banded ankle mobilizations. To do a banded ankle mobilization, you will need to set up a heavy resistance band on something pretty steady. Basically, all you do is you step into the band, making sure that the band is quite low on your ankle. And from there, you want to add as much tension as you can onto the band. And then you keep your heel flat on the ground the entire time. And then you press your shin forward, and that would increase the amount of dorsiflexion that you have in your ankle. A really key point with this regarding technique is to make sure that you keep your toe in line with your knee the entire time. You really don't want to see that knee collapsing inward on the inside of your toe. You want to make sure that your knee is in line with your toe the entire time. Another similar one to this is if you were to just use a kettlebell or something weighted, you basically just place the kettlebell on top of your knee, and now that kettlebell can now act as a weight to push your shin forward into more ankle dorsiflexion. The same rules apply for this one, making sure that you keep your knee in line with your toe the entire time, because that's going to help mimic the technique of a squat better than if your knee was on the inside. Another really great mobilization you can do for your ankles is to stretch out your soleus muscle, which is one of the deep muscles inside the calf. Basically, all you need is a small step or a dumbbell, and what you need to do is place your foot up onto the dumbbell, and what you want to think about doing is keeping your heel low and pressing your knee forward the entire time. This is going to help stretch out your soleus muscle, which is one of the deep muscles that you find inside the calf. If you think that the reason why your heels are coming off the ground when you squat is because of a limitation in your ankle range of motion, I'd recommend that you choose any one of these mobilization exercises that I've shown you here. Do them for at least 5 minutes and then retest your squat to see if it's improved your technique. Reason number two is a reduced range of motion in your hip internal and hip external rotation. Hip external rotation occurs when your hip and your leg move away from the midline of your body And hip internal rotation occurs when your hip and your leg move towards the midline of your body. If we have a limitation in either of these movements, it can cause you to feel restricted and tight as you descend into the squat. And as always, to compensate, your heels would raise up from the ground. A quick test to see your hip internal and external rotation is to lie on your back. To perform external rotation, you'd spin your foot towards the midline and spin your knee towards the outside. And to perform internal rotation, you just do the opposite. So your foot would go to the outside and your knee would go to the inside. Ideally, what you want to be seeing is for external rotation that you want to have at least 50 degrees of range of motion. And for internal rotation, you want to have at least 40 degrees of range of motion. Now, there are a lot of different mobilizations and exercises you can do to help improve these two ranges of motion. My favorite ones to improve external rotation are the pigeon pose, which is basically when you sit on the ground, you get one leg forward and one leg back, and you aim to fold yourself forward, and that would help to improve your hip external rotation as well as your hip flexion. A really important technique point for this one is to make sure that your shin and your foot are not too close to you. You want to have your knee at about a 90-degree angle. By moving your shin more forward, this would help increase the intensity of the stretch. A really simple exercise you can do to help improve your hip internal rotation is to lie on your back. You'd move one foot out towards the side, hook your foot on top of that knee, and basically you try and push your knee down into the ground. What this is going to do is this is going to increase the range of motion of internal rotation that you have in your hip. Some other more advanced techniques you can do to help improve hip external and internal rotation is to perform banded distraction work. This is going to help improve the range of motion of the hip joints. Basically what you do is you set up a heavy resistance band on something really steady. You'd raise up the band so it's really high up in your leg, and then you'd walk yourself out so that there's enough tension on the band, almost like it's going to pull you out to the side. What you want to do from there to improve hip external rotation is you want to place your knee on the ground, place your other leg backwards behind you, and then you want to swing your leg into external rotation. And then from there, what you want to imagine is you want to imagine pushing your hip out to the side and allowing that band to pull it out. This is going to help improve your external rotation of your hip joints. To improve hip internal rotation, you basically just need to flip your leg in the opposite direction. So you'd flip your leg over to the right, so your foot is more on the outside. From here, you want to think about pushing your hips backward, and this is going to help improve your hip internal range of motion. If you would like a more detailed explanation on how to do hip internal and external rotation mobilizations with the band, then just comment below and I can send you the videos directly. The next reason why your heels may be raising from the ground has to do with where the pressure is on your foot when you squat. A common mistake beginners do while squatting is that they place too much pressure on the front half of their foot. If you have too much pressure at the front of your foot as you descend, your heels will most likely raise up from the ground and you will begin to feel unbalanced. Fixing this is fairly simple. You want to be able to maintain an even foot contact with the ground as you squat. A really simple cue you can use is to make sure that your body weight is going through the middle of your foot, and you also want to make sure that you're pushing down into the ground through your big toe. This will allow you to remain flat-footed and will help keep your heels on the ground as you squat. And the last reason why your heels may be coming off the ground when you squat is in two parts. They are fairly similar, so I've categorized them together in this final part. And that has to do with your stance width, so how far apart and how close together your feet are when you squat, and also your foot orientation. First of all, regarding foot orientation, if your feet are orientated too much in a straight line forward, almost as if they're on train tracks, when you squat, it's going to make it a lot harder for you to get into a proper depth without your heels rising up from the ground. And regarding foot stance, if your foot stance is too narrow, you may not have enough range of motion in your hips or your ankles to be able to get into a deep enough squat. In this case, to compensate, your heels would lift up from the ground. Fixing this is fairly simple. For your foot position, you want to spin your feet out no more than 15 degrees and see if this helps. And to fix stance width, just bring your foot stance out a little bit wider. Around shoulder width apart is usually a good place to set up. If you still find that with these two adjustments that your heels still come up from the ground, it is most likely a range of motion issue that you have in your hips or your ankles, which is causing your heels to raise up from the ground. So at the start of this video, I told you that I would show you a very effective mobility exercise, which would help improve the technique of your squat so that you can keep your heels down. So what I'm about to show you now is how to use the Voodoo Floss Band. The Voodoo Floss Band is a very simple piece of equipment. It's basically a really rigid band that you can use for compression purposes, and it is also a really great tool that you can use to help improve your muscle and joint range of motion. So what I'm about to show you now is how you can use the Voodoo Floss Band to help improve your ankle range of motion. So to use the Voodoo Floss Band, all you need to do is start at the base of your foot. Start by wrapping around the base of your foot, overlapping the band by about half. What you want to do is when you add tension to the band, you want to add tension towards the base of your foot and also at the back of your calf. You can see that I'm adding tension here as I go. To add tension, you just need to pull on the band fairly hard and you'll feel the band getting tighter and tighter as you move up your ankle. Continue to move up the back of your calf until you get to the end of the Voodoo Floss Band, and at the end you can just hook it out so that the whole item just ties off. From there, what you can do is you can then couple using the Voodoo Floss Band with the other mobility exercises I showed you before for your ankle. So you can see here that I'm using the banded ankle mobility exercise along with the Voodoo Floss Band. Again, this is going to make the mobility drill a little bit more aggressive, and it's going to allow you to get a little bit more range of motion in those ankles. You can also couple using the Voodoo Floss Band with the Soleil stretch, so just putting a dumbbell on the ground while the Voodoo Floss Band is around your ankle. And if you'd like to couple both of these together, what you can also do is add the banded ankle mobility along with the Soleil stretch. So you put the band around the front of your ankle, place your toes up onto the dumbbell, and you try and press your knee forward. So these are the top 4 reasons why your heels may be coming off from the ground when you squat. And I'm curious to know which one of these reasons sounds like the reason why your heels are coming up from the ground. Is it your hip or ankle mobility? Does it have to do with your foot pressure, or does it have to do with your foot stance or your foot width? Comment below which one sounds like you, as I'm curious to know your thoughts. Otherwise, if you are interested in getting access to my free mobility assessment video, then all you need to do is click on the link in the description below. This mobility assessment video will walk you through step by step how you can assess your own range of motion and flexibility in the muscles which may be affecting your squat or your injuries. So to get access to that video, all you need to do is click on the link in the description below and you can get instant access. Otherwise, if you would like to get more videos just like this one, then make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.